These are the base instructions for the gearbox pits. So step 1, we're going to take part number 2 and sand the inside edge. You might like to use a scalpel like this just to help cut these tabs. And just sand off those tabs, sand or cut, so they don't get in the way. Here's the sandpaper provided. And now we're going to sand inside of this hole where our winding shaft will be. Just roll the sandpaper into a bit of a tube. Just give it a light sand. And now take the wax and give it a light wax. Actually, you want quite a heavy wax. The more wax the better in these kits. Makes things slide nice and smooth. Just cleaning out the excess wax. Step number 3, we're going to take our 5.5mm dowel and glue it into the hole in part 2. And avoid getting glue on that top face. All parts should be given a bit of a sand if they need them, just to stop pieces of wood splintering off. Place some glue on the bottom face in the hole. And then push our dowel in from the top. That stops the glue getting on this face. Helpful to have a rag just to wipe any glue. Make sure that dowel's all the way down. Just give it a bit more of a push. There we go, so it's flush with that bottom face. If it's not, then it can get in the way of the mechanisms later on. Now we're going to take our gear number 3 and wax the faces both sides. Again, make sure the tabs are sanded off. Don't want tabs on the gear teeth because they can bind the mechanism. Again, apply a lot of wax. Just rub it all over the face. And then flip it over and wax the other side. Give those teeth a bit of a wax too. So the wax acts as a lubricant, like oil, helps to reduce friction in the mechanisms. Now we're going to place our gear. And now step 6, going to take part number 4. You might not need a scalpel to press out the parts, but if you do, then it can be helpful just to cut the tabs. And you can avoid any breakage. This is a bit of a delicate part here, so I might use the scalpel to avoid breaking it. And again, sand off any tabs. Any areas that you think might catch on moving parts. Right, so we're going to sand inside of this hole. Doesn't need too much. And we're going to wax inside that hole as well. This is again so our winding stick can move nice and freely. And you're going to place this on top lightly for now. Make sure that this dowel isn't sticking up past this gear, that it's just below the surface. That way it won't collide with our other smaller gear later on. Now take these parts. You'll need 4 of them, and as usual sand off any tabs. And these are going to push on with the 2 slots. You might like to push these all on before you glue them. And you also want part number 5, the base. Make sure any tabs are sanded off. And find the flat edge without any notches, and I've put this piece in so that we've got our cross on the left and our winding hole on the right, and our joining pieces coming in on the left front corner here. And now align this base so that the unnotched side is towards you, and slide that on like so, and slide on the rest. Make sure they're all the way in. And check that gear is moving freely. Okay, now we can take them off and glue them. Now we know we've got them all in the right spot with that unnotched edge on this side. So you can just place your glue in that slot. Now I have, and you should have, a jar of water with some brushes in it here. I like to use a larger brush and a smaller brush, and I use that to spread my glue. Just helps to get a bit more coverage. Again, push it all the way in. You want those corners to meet up. So those corners are going to meet up on the top piece. They're only going to meet up on the side because this is a bit shorter, this bottom piece, so there will be a small piece protruding here, as you can see. You can always clean up any excess glue with your damp brush. It also makes a better join. Now we'll glue these. And check that gear's moving nice and smoothly. Put it back with the cross on the left. Okay, step 11, we're going to find part number 6, glue the edges, no glue on the top edge, and that's going to slide into its location there on the side with the hole. Sand off any tabs as usual. So this will be glued into this position here. Spread that glue out a bit. And you can push in this top tab first. And the bottom. Just make sure that this piece is right down, that there's no gap between these pieces, otherwise it can push this piece up a bit and end up pinching the gear, so the gear won't move as freely. So just make sure that's right down. Our gear can still move. So step 12, we're now going to put in piece 12 on the other side, the side with a little female puzzle piece notch. Sand off any tabs. So let's put some glue on that. Spread that glue about. Put the glue here on the edge and a little bit on the face, just on those side parts, on those side edges. Tiny bit on the top, just on the ends. That's the inside face you want that glue, because it's going against these corner pieces. And we'll use our wet brush to spread that glue about, let it wick into the cracks. Whenever you test this gear, don't push down on the top face because that will pinch it and stop it moving freely. Now we want to find the small gear, part number 8. We're not going to glue this piece, we're going to wax edges and faces both sides, and then we're going to slide it in to where the hole is. And it's especially important to make sure there's no tabs on gears, because then the gears will bind when they're moving. So, sand off the tabs, and now we're going to wax both sides. One side, wax the other side, and wax the teeth. And you can just blow away any excess wax. When we slide this gear in, we want to mesh it as shown in this picture here. So we've got our cross to the left, lined up towards this dot, and then this gear is also making a cross, and we want to find where the cross matches some teeth. So this one, it's not quite lining up with the tooth, but this one, it is lining up with the tooth on the top. And then coming down, there's a gap. So this is our correct orientation. And slide our gear in. Now we want to take step 15, parts 9 and 10, sand and wax the edges where they'll be rubbing inside of the hole. Sand off the tabs. And make sure these edges are smooth, because those will be rubbing inside of the hole as we crank the handle. And rub a bit of wax on those edges. And now we can assemble them. So it says glue in the slot, don't use too much glue. So if we use too much glue, we might end up gluing our drive shaft into our hole, which we don't want to do. Then we won't be able to turn our mechanism. wipe away any water with a paper towel. And now on part 17, don't use too much glue or part will stick, and not spin freely. Glue carefully in 4 bottom corners only. So this is going to slide into our cross in the small gear, so we can just glue in these corners because the bottom part will be rubbing inside of our bearing surface. We just want to glue the gear, the small gear, to this drive shaft, so just a bit of glue in these bottom corners. That's enough to spread around. You might need to wiggle this gear about a bit to make the holes line up, and then you can push that all the way down. Give it a wiggle so it's not going to bind up with any glue. Okay, now we're going to find part 11. Not going to use any glue on that. I'm going to press that on. Sand any tabs. And press that on. And now test and free up the mechanism by turning the gear with your finger. So don't hold on the top, hold down the bottom and give this a turn and check that it's nice and free. And we'll finish with it back where we started, with the cross pointing towards this dot. Okay, so let's take part 13 and 14, which is the ribbed dowel. Sand any tabs. Sand the flat edge of this dowel a bit so there's no splinters. And we're going to glue that in here. So let's get some glue. Push it down till it's flush on the bottom. Make sure it looks nice and square. Wipe off any excess glue. So, checking that it's flush. And now we're going to insert that onto our drive shaft and put some glue on these top faces. Spread that about, and can also go up the edges, up the sides of the drive shaft a bit. Want that to be a nice strong bond. And we're gluing it so that it's pointing in to the left. So orient is shown with the cross to the left towards this dot and a parallel line running from that dot through the center to this little square hole here. And this is also going to run parallel to that imaginary line. so it's pointing inwards to your left. And push down on that, make sure it's making a good connection. Okay, so don't wind the handle until the glue's dry. You can use your finger to turn the gear instead. And if you do that now, it makes sure that there's no glue inside here that's going to bind up while it's drying. Okay, so that's complete. That's our base, and now this base connects to the different gearbox pets that are available in this series. So find your appropriate video for the gearbox pet that you are doing, and we'll see you back here.